let's scoot ahead. I want to talk now about, I don't know, maybe one of the teams of the tournament. I'd be curious to hear where you land on this. Mexico taking on Paraguay in a match that was, I know we don't usually say this on the side of the pond, a certified cracker.
It certainly was. And I think I'd agree with you, Mexico being maybe the team of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
This was a hell of a football game. Looking back in my notes, I wrote, quote, Mexico looks good in possession and in the press, end quote, in the early stages of the game. And the first 30 minutes largely belonged to Mexico. Lachery had a pretty clear game plan, used the skill of Club America right back Karen Luna to drive the ball down the right side of the pitch. And who was there linking up with Luna on the right side? None other than last week's breakout star, Club Tijuana's Mayra Pelayo.
Let's go.
Those two also worked with Pachuca midfielder Carla Nieto, who we talked a little bit about last week. Those three were holding possession. They were creating opportunities on goal. And Mexico cashed in the 31st minute when Pelayo played a cross into the box. And, of course, who was there? The other breakout star of last week, Lisbeth Ovalle. She got it under control with what felt like two quick touches, and she fired a shot to beat Paraguayan keeper Alicia Bobadilla pretty handily. I have a feeling we're going to talk a lot about Bobadilla more throughout this podcast, but it turned out that beating her would be tough, and Ovalle made it look pretty easy there. I have a bone to pick with this part of football stats, but looking at the CONCACAF website, and maybe I was looking too early, I checked again today, I didn't see it, but it doesn't give Pelayo an assist on that. I guess presumably because Ovalle took a couple touches before scoring, and I just think that's silly. So break out the ITC personal record book, Bubba. Pelayo gets an assist on that one.
Got it right here. It's going in the book.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
100% co-sign that. And shout out to Trinidadian color commentator Ryan Davis, whose voice I thoroughly enjoyed on the broadcast. Trinidadian, but he's also white, so that one threw me for a loop. So go figure. But with regards to that Pelayo Ovalle link up, whenever you make the announcer say, and the delivery was spectacular, as good as the finish, that sounds like an ITC personal record book assist if I ever saw one. I wanted to have a little quick conversation about Ovalle. We've seen this before in tournaments where there's like a breakout star. You know, I'm obviously thinking Linda Caicedo, James Rodriguez in a World Cup in recent past. Bariuelo in this most recent World Cup was unbelievable. I want to say that Lisbeth Ovalle is on that same trajectory because she just does it all at her position. She's tough. She's physical. She can pass. She can shoot. She can create space. And it just feels like, can we get her on the club side? I'm like, can we get her in Orlando? Can I get her in Arsenal? Like, let's get her into the Champions League in some way, shape, or form. I think her game absolutely fits. I think she'd be fucking awesome. I don't even know where she plays, actually. So
she plays for Tigres.
Okay.
In Liga MX Femenil. Is it Liga MX or Liga MX?
I mean, I think after last week's performance, I mean, if I'm you,
Heat check.
I'm throwing down that MX.
All right, fair enough. So yeah, she plays for Tigres in Liga MX, and she's 24 years old.
Let's go.
To answer your question, Ovalle a star? Fuck yeah, absolutely, no doubt. She is the star of the tournament, as you mentioned, possibly the team of the tournament. I mean, you nailed it, man. She does everything. She creates space. Yeah. She's strong. She's like broad-shouldered, like she's throwing players around out there, and then has this blinding skill on top of it. She gets the ball on her left foot. She's firing from anywhere around the 18. I love her game. I love her as a player. I saw a lot, like people, and into the channel on the Twitter account, we're trying to follow like as many other people who are smart and really care about the women's game as we can. And a lot of people are saying motherfuckers are sleeping on Liga MX and that it's a great league. So I got to try to find the TV rights. I got to try to find out what's going on down there. We had actually a couple of people in our YouTube comments as well. So shout out to them for like letting us know like, hey, this is a good league down here. So we got to figure out how to watch this, add it to the list of football that we need to at least try to consume.
I'm 100% with it. I mean, I think the talent and the style too, like you can kind of see that if a lot of this Mexican team, which I don't have the exact numbers, but I know a lot of them do play in MX, you can tell that it's a unique style that blends, some NWSL stuff, some like physical stuff, but also super skilled. We talked about the USA-Mexico match. They were exhibiting more skill than the U.S. women's national team was.
Yeah.
Passes were crisper. The movements were better. Somebody also mentioned this with regard to Barcelona in the YouTube comments, saying that, they're running the same plays that they do, on their club teams. And that's kind of why they look so good. I think we're seeing a little bit of that too from this Mexico side.
Okay, I believe I have this right. Anybody can feel free to fact check me, and if it's wrong, we'll take it out of the YouTube video. But Mexico head coach Pedro Lopez, native of Spain, he's 44 years old, and I believe his last head managerial job was coaching the Spanish U20s. And I think when they
Interesting.
either won the U20, I believe they won the U20 World Cup, and Beruelo was on that squad. So the fact that Mexico is out, like, looking for talent out there, probably a good sign.
Yeah, 100%. No, they're definitely, can't even really say they're on the way up. It seems like they're already here. They feel like a team that we can see in the quarterfinals, maybe sneak into the semifinal of an upcoming World Cup here if they continue on this trajectory.
Yeah, I don't know. FIFA, you got them ranked 35. Maybe that's too low. I don't know.
I would say so.
So near the end of the first half, it looked like Paraguay's only chance was going to be counterattacking underdog football.
Mm-hmm.
In the first half, they couldn't muster much of an attack on their own, and they could really just not even hold the ball for any real meaningful stretches. It looked like things were going to get pretty ugly in the 43rd minute when 26-year-old Monterrey midfielder Rebecca Bernal, who I thought was fantastic throughout most of this match, Bernal won a header near the penalty spot, played it right onto Kiana Palacios, also of Club America. And Palacios just missed the sitter, hits it over the bar, and we go into the half, Mexico up just 1-0. And from there, I was like, oh boy, if Mexico's going to have open chances like that, this one might get really, really ugly. We come out of the halftime break. Mexico almost immediately makes it 2-0. In the 49th minute, Luna is just stalking at the top of the box on a corner kick. When the deflection comes to her, she just did everything she needed to do, perfectly executed, drills the shot.
Oh, yeah.
2-0. Things are looking up for Mexico.
Incredible strike by Luna. This play featured, I'm going to say, my number one favorite thing in all of football. I know I have a bunch of number one favorite things. A looping header, a ball into the channel, Basha ball. But this one's my real number one favorite. A ball so well struck, the goalkeeper remains completely and utterly frozen. This one took a little deflection, but it was shot out of a cannon. And Bobadilla, who you mentioned, zero chance to stop it. There's something so satisfying. I don't know. It just delights me to no end.
It's incredible because you know that the keeper is like, I'm going to dive to the right. And then like they plant their feet and then it's obviously going left. And they're like, well, that's pointless. I'm not wasting the dive. So at that point, I'm like, okay, this one might actually get out of hand. But man, I was going to save it for later. I'm going to spoil it a little bit. Give me some Paraguay stock. I'm buying some stock in this as a footballing country in the women's game. They turned it into an excellent match. They grew into the game in a way that I thought Colombia would. You could tell that Paraguay was just like, we're not going out sad tonight. Let's just go as hard as we can, and we're going to see what happens. And they had a lot to do to even get to that joy. So they win a penalty, but Barreras, Mexico's keeper, saves it. And it wasn't even like, oh, Barreras made a great, great save. It wasn't even a well-struck penalty. So we're just adding on reasons why Paraguay should be like concerned and kind of like, okay, this one isn't our night. Like, okay, now it's not a well-struck penalty. Barreras saves it kind of easily. Then Paraguay comes off a corner kick and they have two shots on goal from like the 6-yard box. They're both blocked off the line. One was by Tigres left back, Greta Espinoza. The other was by Bernal, which is a diving header off the line,
Tremendous.
Which was super fucking sick.
Yeah, tremendous. I mean, that was big money play. And that's just what you love to see from this Mexico side, that they're just all in. Like they're just all fucking in 90 plus minutes. And we'll get into what transpired in the rest of this game, but kind of now feels like they can win any kind of match. I think this tournament's paid pretty good dividends. Speaking of buying stock, you got a couple shares of El Salvador, somewhere back in the back of the portfolio, a little Paraguay now, just a little sprinkled in. I'm just really happy with kind of how this one's rolled out.
Absolutely. So Bernal clears the ball off the line with that diving header. Now we have the evidence is mounting for Paraguay. This isn't your night. And like, how many times have you seen a side, they start to kind of hang their head? And when they have those chances, then you see the more powerful team, maybe the slightly more talented team, they'll come down and score on a counter and then put the last nail in the coffin and just
Yep.
finish the thing out. And I will say, like, I very, very rarely believe in any pro athlete, quote unquote, giving up. I fucking hate when sports pundits talk about stuff like that, especially guys who, like me, who did not play at any real level and just
Yeah.
throw around like, oh yeah, they gave up out there. Like, that's not, if you've ever talked to any of these people who excel in professional sports or even high level collegiate sports, they're not wired that way. They do not fucking give up. But you can see a team kind of recognize like, okay, it's not super happening for us. We're trying, we're doing our thing, but they can have that like momentary lapse in judgment. Not this Paraguay team. They found their joy when 22-year-old Camila Barbosa, she hits a perfect header off a corner kick to beat the keeper. This was another one of those plays that I'm just completely in love with the execution. So Barbosa hits the header into the ground on goal in traffic. It was exactly what the moment called for
Yeah.
because Barreras has no shot at tracking that when the ball is hit low off the header like that. You could tell by the way she dove. By the time she recognized where it was way too late. And now we have 2-1. Paraguay is back in this thing.
I mean, I think you nailed it. Where a lot of teams, they're not really giving up, right? Sometimes what can happen, maybe the intensity goes down a couple notches, maybe the focus goes down a couple notches, a missed play, a missed opportunity gets stuck in your mind a little bit. You're kind of replaying it. You're trying to figure out, all right, what went wrong, and now somebody's running behind you, right? We see
Yep.
that kind of all the time. So it's not a matter of like effort. It's just a matter of like the engine's running a couple fewer RPMs, and I think that's when you get beat by something that, maybe normally you'd be able to defend. But this Paraguay side, not only did they not pack it in, I think they cranked it up.
They did.
Like to kind of get a penalty kick stopped, they came right back and had those couple chances. The intensity just kind of went up from there. And then you got to credit Mexico as well. They matched it. And then it was just a game of just, leapfrogging each other. It was like, all right, who could give the most? Who can kind of play the hardest? The 50-50 balls were pay-per-view.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that game was just fireworks the last 25-30 minutes.
And speaking of those fireworks, so now Paraguay, they pull one back. So they're down 2-1. So what does Mexico do? They answer quickly. And a little bit of a miscommunication mistake on Paraguay's side. So 23-year-old Portland Thorns fullback, Reina Reyes for Paraguay, she plays a ball back way too casually
Hmm.
to her teammate Veronica Riveros, allowing Mexico's Stephanie Mayor to take the ball with momentum off of Riveros and glide to about as pure of a 1v1 versus a keeper as you could have. Like, there was nobody in the screen other than 1v1 for like a second and a half. But man, Bobadilla, she rushes off her line. She knows exactly about like where to stand, kind of like in front of the penalty spot to put the pressure on Mayor. And in just a phenomenal demonstration of flexibility, poise, and technique. And she's able to kick it out off to the kind of right hand side of the box as the attackers are running in. But guess who's there? Probably the last person in this tournament you would want to be right there. And it's Ovalle. She's right there with the rebound. And we talked about her calmness and her poise in the USA match. Just super calm, casual, slot the ball into the net from an acute angle, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not the best of angles for her to get it in there. Mexico's back up 3-1. Surely that was the backbreaker.
Spinal.
No fucking way. Never count Paraguay out. You out of your fucking mind if you're counting Paraguay out. Riveros not rattled at all by the giveaway. 3 minutes later, Riveros plays a perfectly timed pass over the defense into Rebecca Fernandez, who does the rest to claw Paraguay back to 3-2. That's it.
Insane.
I'm trying to, at this point, I'm just like trying to decide how much stock I am buying in Paraguay at this point. I'm looking at like, okay, how much liquid do I have? What are my other assets doing? How could you just not love this team at this point?
Impossible not to. Tremendous spirit in this one and skill.
Yeah.
Like they made plays when they needed it. And that's like knockout stage football. Team a little bit at a disadvantage, kind of giving it their all. A game that, I don't know, man, like what would you say, 8 out of 10, 9 times out of 10, 2-0 under those circumstances, miss the penalty kick, it's a wrap. But this one, not that. So you'd love to see that spirit from that side. And yeah, we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that Paraguay side.
For sure. And, credit to Mexico, though. They were able to really kind of put some clamps down, especially in the final third
Yep.
over the last 18 plus minutes of the match. To your point, you would be silly not to love Paraguay's grit in this match. And the same goes for Mexico. Even though Mexico were front runners throughout this match, they needed that grit too, because how many times have you also seen it go the other way, where you're up
Yep.
2-0? I think Men in Blazers, they have that joke, 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in football. And people remember those games that you give away the 2-0 lead. So for them to keep answering punch, counterpunch, punch, counterpunch was just, that's like why we're watching these games. So I think it's a good sign. It's healthy. I mean, it just speaks to the general overall health of CONCACAF on the Mexico side, for CONMEBOL on the Paraguayan side. I just think there's no way you could leave that match not feeling great about the future of both of these clubs. And you still get to see Mexico play some more.
Yeah, 100%. Let's talk about that some more that we're going to see here coming up on Wednesday. Semifinals, I always say it, styles make fights. Brazil, offensive-minded, creative, explosive. Mexico, tough, aggressive, different kind of explosive. No shots at the US or Canada, who face off in the other semifinals matchup, but this Brazil-Mexico matchup, holy hell. Talk about two teams that are both on absolute fire coming into this one. Impossible to predict who comes out on top. One thing I can predict, though, I am not to be disturbed Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, while these two teams lock up, because I need to be 100% fucking locked into this one. Quick question here. Obviously, these two teams looking really strong coming into the semifinals matchup. Mexico coming off a huge win over the U.S., another nip and tuck, but very professional win over a really tough Paraguay opponent. Brazil, they took care of business in the group stage, took care of business again in the quarters, but still maybe something a little bit missing. We talked about this too in our Champions League coverage, when a tough road can kind of sharpen you a little bit, kind of get you ready. Brazil hasn't, they had a tough one against Colombia. Argentina didn't put up much of a fight. We've watched these two teams pretty closely in these quarterfinals matchup. Who would you say is in better form coming into the semis here?
It might sound weird. I know Brazil hasn't lost. I know Mexico drew their opening match against Argentina. I know Brazil's walking in off a 5-1 defeat of Argentina. I think it's Mexico, man. I think they're fucking really, really good. God.
I agree with you.
Ovalle, Paleo, and Nieto. I just love that link up right there. I think that is a really nice front line who plays well with the other players in the mix there. Man, like they look strong. They play strong. They play confident. Ovalle looks like she's going to start shooting from fucking 40 yards out. She doesn't care. She right now is looking around saying, I'm the best player in this tournament. I got 5 goals in this tournament. Who wants to see me? I knocked off the big bad USA. What's up? And so I think if you're her, you walk into that match and you tell all your supporting cast or your teammates, let's go fucking beat Brazil in an important football match.
I'm glad you helped me reconcile what I was feeling, because obviously you see Brazil, you see the results, you see all the talent, but there's just something about this Mexico side. You're just like, that's the side right here. Like, kind of feels like Ovalle might be the player of the tournament, Mexico might be the team of the tournament, and we might just see that carry all the way into the final. They definitely could be one of the teams holding the trophy at the end of it. I'm just super pumped for this matchup. I think it would be a travesty to call this one an undercard. This kind of feels like a co-main event,
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just pumped. Glad we get to see it first. Then we have the US-Canada matchup immediately thereafter. I'm ready for Wednesday, man.
I'm just going to put this out into the universe. I know we live in the United States of America. We talk about the U.S. women's national team a lot. This could be a better game. I think it's very live that this is a better, more entertaining, more skilled match. But I say that saying that it is on the board. I'm not guaranteeing it, because looking up and down those Canada and USA rosters, those are some pretty incredible rosters. But I think that Mexico-Brazil has the opportunity to be like a 4-3 classic or maybe a 2-1 classic. Like, I just think it is very live, that I think it's more likely that you get an exciting game than a boring game.
I agree with that. If I were a betting man, I'd bet on this one being the more exciting of the two. But we just got to get to Wednesday. If you enjoyed hanging out with us, subscribe. We are covering the sport every week here and into the channel, sometimes twice a week. Podcast primarily about women's football. Earlier, we covered USA's big 3-0 win over Colombia, as well as Brazil's 5-1 takedown of Argentina. Coming up, we've got one more CONCACAF W Gold Cup quarterfinals matchup to break down. That's Canada versus Costa Rica. And we'll also preview the USA semifinal matchup against the Canadians, going down Wednesday, 10:15 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back later this week to recap both semifinals matchups and preview the CONCACAF W Gold Cup final, which could include any combination of these four teams, but hopefully not Canada. So be sure to like if you liked and subscribe if you love the women's game as much as your boys do and want to hang out with us just a little bit more.
Canada, you caught a stray there, but we'll show you some love in the next episode, and we will see you there.